All right, let's talk about some pretty big news that just dropped for BMNR. A huge announcement came out, but the way the market reacted, well, it wasn't what anyone expected. It's a real puzzle, and today, we're going to try and piece it together.
Okay, so here's the mystery we're going to unpack. We had this major, super positive development for BMNR, something that looked like it should have been a massive trigger for the stock. So why didn't the price just explode? What happened?
So first things first, let's set the stage with the news itself. This whole thing revolves around a decision from MSCI, and if you don't know, they're one of the biggest global index providers on the planet.
And this wasn't just big news, it actually came early. The market was kind of bracing for a decision later in January, but boom, MSCI gave the green light ahead of schedule. You know, for companies like BMNR, whose entire business model is basically raising money to buy more crypto, getting into these major indexes is a huge stamp of approval. It's massive validation.
Okay, so this is where the story takes a weird turn. You'd think a surprise announcement like this would send the stock absolutely soaring, right? But that's not what happened at all.
I mean, the initial reaction was positive, sure. BMNR popped up about 3% and MicroStrategy saw a 7% gain. But let's be real here. For news of this magnitude, these numbers are tiny. It's not a bang, it's a whimper. It was a little flicker when everybody was expecting some serious fireworks.
The disconnect here was huge. All the chatter was about a potential 20% jump, maybe even more, but the reality was this lukewarm bump that left a lot of investors just scratching their heads. So what was the one detail the market seemed to overlook?
And here it is. The answer was buried in the fine print of the MSCI decision. So while the index will add a company's existing shares, it has absolutely no obligation to buy any new shares the company might issue down the road to raise more money.
So what does that actually mean? Well, that catch severely limits the amount of forced, ongoing buying from all the funds that track the MSCI index. The hope was for this giant tidal wave of new money, but this rule turns it into a much smaller, kind of one-time splash. And that's what explains the muted reaction.
So if the MSCI news wasn't the mega catalyst everyone thought it was, does that mean it's case closed for BMNR? No, not at all. According to our source material, this just means we were all looking at the wrong event. The real story might actually be just around the corner.
So, where should we be looking next? This timeline lays it out perfectly. We had the MSCI news back in January. Yeah, but the date that could be way more significant is coming up this summer. Specifically, a potential inclusion into the Russell 2000 index.
And why would this one matter so much more? Well, the source material actually describes this event as, and I'm quoting here, quite very bullish. It seems BMNR has all the key metrics, things like market cap and profitability, all lined up for a pretty straightforward inclusion. This could be the event that actually creates that significant, sustained buying pressure everyone was looking for in the first place.
Okay, so with a major potential catalyst on the horizon, how can we frame the bigger picture for BMNR? I mean, this is a company that's faced its fair share of negative headlines and investor doubt. Well, the source material offers a really fascinating way to think about this, using a company we all know very, very well as the perfect example.
Believe it or not, the comparison is to Tesla. And I know that might sound a little strange today, but it really wasn't that long ago that Tesla was just drowning in negative headlines, production problems, debt issues, you name it. And how the company dealt with all that, well, it provides a powerful roadmap.
It's this idea called the onion layer thesis. So picture this. You start with these thick, ugly layers of bad news all pressing down on a stock's price. For a company like BMNR, that might be worries about fundraising or regulatory stuff. But then, the company starts fixing things. And each time they solve a problem, it's like they peel back one of those negative layers, letting the true value underneath start to show through.
So what was the result for Tesla after it worked through all its onion layers of bad news? Oh, just a staggering 1,000% increase in its value. It just goes to show you how much potential can be unlocked when a company systematically turns all its negatives into positives.
There's a quote from the source that just captures this idea perfectly. As the bad layers get peeled away, the flower can then bloom and comes even stronger out, because every single problem that gets solved builds more and more confidence with investors.
So the big takeaway here is really this philosophy. It's not just about waiting for good news to drop out of the sky. It's about watching a company actively take on and resolve its biggest criticisms. That process of turning bad news into old, irrelevant news can be one of the most powerful drivers of growth there is.
Which brings us right back to BMNR and our final question. With potential catalysts like the Russell 2000 inclusion on the horizon, can the company follow a similar path?
Can it start peeling back its own layers of doubt and uncertainty to finally bloom? Well, that's the billion-dollar question, isn't it?